Hi, Abenaa.
Hi there, Jocelyn. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm just flipping the F out. I just wanted to make sure, for all the listeners that I had Abenaa's details correctly of how everything's transpired since we've been working together. It's it makes me laugh because it's expected, but it's so crazy. And I'm just so excited for you. So I can't wait for everybody to hear your story. And it's Abenaa Hayes, and you kind of have a different business than a lot of my clients. I have had a number of women who are business to business come through the cohort to great success. You are clearly one of them, which is why we're here today. And, I have a strong background in corporate marketing. So in addition to everything kind of like in the service-based side of the, internet world and, my product marketing clients, et cetera, I
Mhm.
always get really turned on because it's kind of like a little bit of a nod to my past when someone comes through who's business to business. And honestly, it's kind of just like it's all the same. It's just the context that you put it in when it comes to coaching you and helping you expand.
Mhm.
But I do have a background in it. So it's also just like easy for me to apply that context and help you. And before we even dive into the journey, the money, the yum yum, can you just share like what it is that you do? Because it's very unique, and I would just want everyone to know about the power of what you're bringing to the world. And it's such a timely time on the planet.
Sure. So it is quite timely. So because I actually focus on helping companies and brands crystallize their strategy for all things diversity, equity, and inclusion, be it with the internal corporate strategy that they do, or with different ways in which their brands show up in the world. So it's about who they are as a company, who they are in terms of their revenue base, their customers, and most importantly, like you just said, Jocelyn, because of where they are in the world today, it's also helping them navigate like all of the issues, because like the hits keep on coming. It's like we live through traumatic event after traumatic event. People just need to know what to do. And then
Right.
the other part of it is helping companies crystallize what their strategy is from a health perspective, because that's the business I came from. But then just coming through the pandemic, I think we all know now how important it is to really kind of prioritize our health, particularly for people of color and people who've been marginalized, who've been kind of screwed by society overall. So I call myself an equity architect, because I help companies figure out what their strategies are going to be and how they actually execute them.
It's so amazing. And I love what you're doing too, because it's helping companies address these very human issues that have been very present in the past 2 years without being so blanket and performative.
Mm-hmm.
And not even that they're always intending to be, they literally just don't know what to do. And then they just make kind of an effort, and it ends up making things worse than they were before,
Mm-hmm.
is
Totally.
what normally happens. And we're in this era of the great resignation, and people don't even want and quiet quitting and all this stuff, and no one wants to go to
Mm-hmm.
work anyway. So now it's even more important.
1000%. 1000%. And I would say, me coming to you was after I literally was part of the Great Resignation, right? Because I'd worked in the corporate world for 25 years and literally had that moment where I was like, you know what? If I could do it for a company, I could do it for myself. And that was how I started on my journey working with you.
And I love this because this is always the case. And I would love to hear about, I mean, you've had such a wild up level inside the cohort. It's been so beautiful to witness. And I remember you had booked a VIP hour when I was offering them a couple months ago. And I
Mhm.
just, obviously we're working through, and I was like, I really feel like we'll do this. And please come join the cohort. I am so sure about how I can help you. So I was so glad that you took the leap and said yes, because I was very sure.
I will tell you, that leap of faith was one of the best ones that I took. And the reason, Joss, that I booked that hour was you and I have a friend in common, Danny Beinstein, and she reads my charts every year on my birthday. And after I was done with a session with her, she was like, you know what? You've been like rocking this out for so long, but you need someone to help guide you. And she's like, you need to talk to Jocelyn. And I know you and I had kind of been like, in each other's circles in different ways over the years. And Danny was like, you need to jump in and do this immediately. She's like, start with the VIP hour. And the minute I booked that session with you, I knew I had to dive on in because, and I've heard you say this on your podcast as well, like when you look at your branding, you look very woo-woo, but it was in that call, Jocelyn, I swear to you, within the first 10 minutes, when you talked about your experience, I was like, this is it, because your offering is truly the like perfect alchemic mix of the like spiritual mind stuff with also the pragmatism of what you need to do with business.
I know I'm always saying, I'm like, honeys, if your business coach isn't helping you with what to do, it's not business coaching. And
Exactly.
this, like, but people are in all these spiritual containers thinking they're in business coaching. I'm like, no, it's not.
Right.
We get to do both, but we need to do both. And if you want to scale a business to great success, of course, we're going to address your human, we're going to address the spiritual side of things. We all know how focused I am on energetics, embodiment, etc. But there is no way around the how.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've got to land it. And it looks a little different for everyone. Obviously, what you're doing is different than, you know, someone else in the container who's a coach, but like, we got to land it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just so clear, you know, obviously I'm clear, look at, you know, my business, my clients, et cetera. But I was just very happy that you continued to, you know, that you went past the hour and were like, I'm going all in on the cohort. So can you chat about, you know, when you initially came to me before you joined the cohort, kind of where you were income wise and just kind of like what was going on inside your business? Obviously you had just, you know, left your job, et cetera, and you're wanting to get started. And that is kind of it's like a liberating space, but there's almost so much free space that you kind of don't know what to do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear from your perspective, what was going on.
So I will tell you, I was in that kind of a very broad nebulous space trying to figure out what I could actually do because I had so many different skill sets, right, that I could have brought out to the world. And I really needed to figure out what I was going to focus on and then how I was going to show up in the world and then how I was going to price my services. So when I reached out to you, I had taken on just some small consulting projects just to make sure I had some income coming in because, you know, I'm a firm believer in the fact that you have to like start somewhere and have some measure of flow before you start to up level. But I knew that what I was doing wasn't going to be enough, but it was something to make me at least feel like, you know, stuff was being put in the bank account. But I most importantly wanted to be able to, like you just said, get that clarity on all of the things I needed to offer and how I was going to show up. And I have to tell you that like a branding guideline that you have was the thing that saved me because it literally was like the creative brief people use in advertising to help their clients. But I had to turn it on its head and literally look at how I was going to position myself and show up in the world. And what I loved about it was it not only got me to like focus on my services and my superpowers, but it also got me to a place of feeling comfortable about referring to everything that I do in the third person, which was very, very empowering.
And in your space, important. I wouldn't always say that necessarily in somewhere like my space, although I do it, depends on what it is. But in your world, it's important.
So important because I mean, people like you actually said it to me. You're like, what are you offering people and how are you going to make them feel at ease, particularly given all the problems that they're dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion? And that was how I was able to come up with like some key statements that basically called out all the people I was going to like have as my key clients or prospective clients, and then clearly show what those offerings were. And I have to tell you, it has landed so well because I have had people who are established influencers in the space say to me that no one can question what I'm offering, and it is crisp, clear, and I also position myself in a way that makes people feel like they could trust me. And that is so important with this work. But that was also why that brief was so critical, because it forced me to think about me and my superpowers that I was bringing to the world and how I was going to serve it up.
And I remember literally going through your deck because what basically Abenaa did was turn my guidelines for how to create an offer into a pitch deck. Which is what I have my women who are business to business do, because it's all the same. It's just who you're talking to. And we lay it out differently, obviously, because you're going to be doing more presentation style work versus we're selling on the internet and writing sales pages, et cetera. You know, and so I literally remember that call, you know, when we did a good piece of that particular, part of the work. And
Mhm.
so it's just so beautiful to hear how everyone is like, it goes to show you the power of packaging your work. When you do
Mhm.
it well, people are like throwing money at you.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
crazy. And so you mentioned kind of before we got started, you were like, okay, I have some small contracts. What did you say? It was like around 5K a month?
It was around 5K a month. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So that's like fine, but obviously we can't, you know what I mean? That's not sustainable.
Right.
So
Yeah. No.
then can we talk about, and then I have some other questions. So with, the work that we did, obviously, like everybody else, we definitely talk through some energetic pieces, some more specifics around things that were coming up. I remember there was a lot of you just kind of like firming up your boundaries and your pricing as well. It was like having that clarity really set you forward or ignited you into truly seeing yourself as a business and not just like Abenaa who's trying to start a business. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm
Mhm.
a brand. This is like an operation in a good way.
Mhm. I mean, that that was exactly what that was like the end goal. And, you know, once you and I had the conversation around setting the boundaries, right? And, basically telling people the price is the price or the rate is the rate, right? And there's no wiggle room. It was just interesting to see who decided to kind of like fall by the wayside and then who was willing to step up and say yes. Because I had someone who was literally chasing me every few weeks to do work with them, and they were consistently lowballing me, right? And the more the request, they put the request in front of me, the more I was like, this work is not worth what you're asking for, right? I was like, my baseline rate's going to be like, $250 an hour for this. And, it is what it is. And it was amazing to see like this one woman was like, okay, fine, I get it, we'll pay it. And there was another person who was like, it's too much for me. And I was
You're
like,
like, well, bye.
well, bye. Exactly. Because I mean, we all know this when we do this work, right? The ones who often lowball you are more often than not the ones that like are the most torturous clients. And when you do
Always.
this work, particularly as a consultant, your time is not only money, but your time is also energy. And if you're going to do good work, you need the time to be able to do it. And if the client's willing to pay for that rate, those are the ones you want to be working with.
And this is the same thing for those of you who are more in the coaching space. It is all the same, right? This
Mhm.
is why we don't undercharge because you end up so resentful. It's a relationship. You're going back and forth. You're interacting with these people. We have got to get paid the end.
Mhm.
And can we talk about with the like what we created for you, obviously your increase in boundaries, and was there anything else like that was strongly energetic? Because I know that you dropped, there's just so many things, a few things in the Facebook group that, but there were more around the energetic piece, but how those energetics that we move through are really helping you up level before we get to the insane contracts that you've been closing.
So I will say, I mean, the energetics to help me with managing like the fear and the wobbles because, you know, I was doing work on the client services side, with a company and did pretty well. I mean, this was me just kind of doing this on my own. So there's a lot of fear around that. And I know I had shared with you the story of my own mom, who was a consultant in the last years of her life. And I saw how she struggled with, where she started with trying to get, the right contracts and then also just pushing people to get paid. And that was always like a massive fear of mine. So, a lot of the sessions that Rye offered really helped me just kind of like dial down like that voice in my head that was like literally trying to push a panic button. So that was the
Like
first thing
sabotage you.
and
Yeah.
totally sabotage me. But the other piece was really truly using a lot of that energetic work to open me up to just receiving without having to push. And what was interesting about that was, which is what I dropped in the Facebook group, I had people naturally reach out to me to, for example, feature me in Ad Week. So there's a woman who's very well known in DE&I and multicultural marketing who included me in a feature piece she did in Ad Week, which is like a major publication in the marketing world, when there was a whole drama with the Juneteenth ice cream that Walmart put out. And she basically was like, if you need an expert, call Abenaa Hayes. And that was huge because that's like thousands of eyeballs, right?
Mhm.
I also then started getting asked to join certain podcasts, right? So I ended up recording like 4 podcasts, all of which are now dropping in the world. So I had one on Friday, I had one this Monday, I have one next week after the Labor Day holiday. And then I also got asked to do a LinkedIn audio live room today. And I didn't pitch any of this. They just naturally came to me.
Nor were you doing any of this a few months ago. Like, this is your first rodeo.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is how it
Exactly.
gets to be. Okay, so let's go into the contracts that you closed, because the first thing that happened that blew me out the water. So you were sharing these new opportunities were coming to you, all of this stuff, and then you just dropped in and you were like, I have $130,000 contract that looks like it's going to close. And I was just like, what?
I know. I mean, that was one of those things where, I wasn't sure if it was actually going to happen because it took a while to get to signature.
I mean, that's a
And
big contract. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a big contract. And then the other part to it was, we're working in a world now where everyone's like pulling back on things, right? Because no one knows if a recession is going to come and all of this. So I was like, I put the proposal out in the world, right, with that number, and was like, I don't know if they're going to come back and say they're going to cut budget, and they weren't sure either. And lo and behold, by the time it got to like the head of their company, he was like, oh, we got to do this. Didn't bat an eye with the dollar amount and was like, bring it on. And literally a week later, they called and they were like, well, we might need your help with something else. And we know that's going to cost more. Can you give us a proposal? And they were like, and I sent it over to them. And that was a $30,000 one, and they signed off on it. And so suddenly I woke up and realized I went from the like small 5K like consulting assignments to suddenly now having this massive contract that's going to like keep me going for a good period of time.
Obviously. I mean, and then you shared with me. So we went from, okay, around, obviously with the contract, you get paid over time.
Mhm.
So you went from, okay, clocking around 5K months to all of a sudden jumping to your first 40K month.
Exactly. Because
And
once,
like, does everyone understand the magnitude? She is a few months out of her corporate job. Like, this is what I am here for. I'm like, success does not need to be hard. It does not need to take a long time. When did you quit your job?
So I quit in October of 2021, but I gave myself a break, right? So I didn't really start building this business in earnest until probably 4 months ago. So like, that's not a really long runway.
Yeah.
To be moving these types of contracts forward at all.
I mean, it's wild. And imagine where we're going from here. And didn't you tell me there was so there was the 130K one, then the 30K contract. Didn't you say there was something else
Yes,
after
there's
that?
another one that's 30K that was signed 2 weeks ago. There's another one that might be in play for 30K. So I was like, clearly 30K now is going to be my baseline, with other larger ones that will get thrown into the mix. But it was just really funny how everything was built around threes. And I actually, Jocelyn, had set a goal of bringing in at minimum $30,000 a month. So it's just funny how like the universe is just literally sending me assignments that are starting at those baselines, which is amazing.
And this is so simple. I'm like, this is so simple. Can we all let it be this simple and just get the support that we need and go? And also, I have to give you so much credit. Like, you were so coachable. You signed up. You're like, hey, boom, I'm going into the content library. I'm doing the work. I'm coming to the calls. Jocelyn, how about this? Or, whoever within the team that you were working with. And you were just so like, okay, boom, 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 let's go. And just open. Because for you, right, obviously there's going to be more focus on LinkedIn than on Facebook or Instagram. You know what I mean? Just by the nature of your audience. And like, you were just so coachable and so just took everything on board and was like, okay, cool, I'm going to go. And you were you made it easy for yourself.
And I knew I just had to, because like you and I said in that first VIP call, like, I didn't want, you can't do this stuff alone, and you have to be open and receptive to not only feedback, but like the coaching and all of the content, because, you need to be supported. And that support system that you created through the cohort was amazing, because we got access to you, we got access to Shani and Emily and all of the people that ordinarily, if I were working back in my in-house gig, would like have required like massive budgets and so on. So, I mean, what you offered through the cohort was so helpful in terms of the types of experts that I got. But the other thing I loved about it was the fact that I could have literally chosen my own adventure with it based on everything that you offered, and the fact that stuff was available like as recordings afterwards. I was able to like go back and listen, absorb key points. And it also, that's when I got a lot of my pings, when I go back and actually listen to a lot of the sessions.
I know, isn't it so interesting? Sometimes people worry about live calls, and I'm like, of course, there's a wealth of live calls. You can plug when you desire to. Although I am changing the structure of the cohort for anyone who starts after the end of September, because now there is literally like 2 years of content, like between
that's amazing.
Between the content portal and everything in the Facebook group. I'm like, there is just more than enough. But to your point, right? I learn a lot that way too. It's like, yeah, cool. I plug in for live coaching, but there's so much that I just listen to. And then because you're really just in this listening, receptive, you're not really needing to actively engage. It's just like you get a ping, you get a ping, you get a ping. Someone asks a question that you didn't even know that you had, you get an answer, even if their business has nothing to do with yours. Like it's all related.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's amazing how, you know, you could hear some of the challenges that people are having and see how it like actually relates to your business. Because I know that there was a woman in the cohort who was like creating an offering and she was selling them on TikTok, but just even hearing how she was crafting them in terms of the language and then how she was pricing them was so helpful to me, right? Because if you're not only crystal clear about it, but if you actually aren't able to show people what they're going to get, they're not going to sign up. And that was why that was helpful to me, because there's so many people in my world, for example, who think that they could hire me to like coach people to do like unconscious bias trainings, right?
Oh my God.
Problem solve things. And I don't do all of that. I'm kind of like, you know, I'm not necessarily the therapist, I'm the guide. But that was why a lot of what I was hearing in those live calls or hearing in the recorded sessions really helped with me kind of nailing down what I was going to do.
Yeah. And it's like you getting to self-select. And this is such an important piece. We tend to assume we have to do certain things, be certain ways. And then we end up with these businesses that we hate and we under receive because they're not in alignment. And so I love what you're saying, because in a way, it's like you get to actually choose from the menu what you want in terms of business and money for yourself.
1000%. And I mean, the minute you start self-selecting, it's amazing what comes in, right? Because and I mean, that's so important to me because I want to make sure at the end of the day that I'm bringing value to the clients that I'm working with, but that I'm truly, you know, able to contribute in a meaningful way, right? And people need to show up with the, you know, the right budgets to work with me, yes, but then, you know, there's always something valuable that they'll get from me. And I keep going back to the time piece because coming out of like a hustle culture, you know, one of the key things that I've also wanted to focus on in building this business is making sure that I have like just the time for me, right? So it's not only easy in terms of getting the work, but it's easy in terms of managing your time.
And how has that adjusted for you and everything that you learned and we did together? Because obviously pretty much anyone who comes out the corporate world is coming from a grind.
It's still a learning process, I got to tell you. For me, it's like a total unlearning. Because, you know, I got so accustomed to a certain schedule, being on the back-to-back Zooms, like having to like respond with a certain level of immediacy. And I had this moment like a couple of weeks ago when I was like, I don't think I actually need to be hustling this way because I don't think anybody else is expecting me to do it. So why am I doing it? And I was like, it forced me to like pause and take a beat, which was great because then I was like, all right, I could like restructure how I do this, give myself the time I need to do the client work. And if it is that there's things that I want to do, like, you know, have coffee with a friend or go hang out like at a poolside, because, you know, I have access to like a rooftop pool space. I'm like, I could do it. And I could do it and not feel like I'm like playing hooky from school.
Totally. And isn't that so nice?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And you get to do it with money in the bank too, not just doing it to do it. You're also making exponentially more money.
I mean, it's literally like a little luxury in life, but it's a luxury that you need.
What, the pool time?
Yes, the pool time and making the money. But the pool time is amazing because it's hot as hell this summer. And let me tell you, I just love being able to take a break in that shade.
I know. I spend so much time outside, which is obviously not available when you are working in an office. I mean, I know a lot of people work from home now, but the whole point is just that you get to choose what it looks like. And you literally just get to have what you want. It's like you get to go to the pool and you get to have 40K months, right? You get to
Mhm.
have boundaries and you get to have people honor your contracts. Now you have this flexibility too to like bring on a team. You're just going to continue to close bigger and bigger contracts. And now it gets to look like, okay, cool. What do I want to offload within my business? Right. Then you have even more time. You guys can take on more work without getting overloaded. Like it's just like the sky is the limit.
It totally is. And like you just said about bringing on a team, right? I actually had people coming to me wanting to work with me. Like I didn't have to try to outsource people. I mean, the only person I brought on proactively was an admin. But as this work started coming in, I actually had 3 former colleagues of mine come to me and were like, we're here to help. Let's pitch in and step it up. And let me tell when we announced that we were like partnering together on LinkedIn, let me tell you, that thing blew up and we got more people reaching out to us wanting to work with us. It's amazing how that happens.
And I love so much of your story too, because this is the magnetism, this is the feminine receiving that I'm talking about when we actually have, because the whole premise of the cohort, right, is 5-figure months, the feminine way with the masculine structure to back it up. So what you're describing is very much, one of the first things you said is like, it was so helpful in the cohort to straight up get the how, like, please help me with how to do this for my energy, for my business, which allows you, right? And what we do in parallel is like, of course, like unwind all the energetic stuff we all carry around, etc. And there's just this deepening into your feminine because you feel supported by the structure of your business. The world is responding to it. And then you just get to lean back and receive. And like people come to you, people show up. I'm like, you don't have to chase for all of these things for a team, for an admin, for whatever. When you're in this deep level alignment and you have this harmonization, and you're talking about going to the pool, right? More of the feminine leaning back. And you have this harmonization between the masculine and the feminine, everything starts working in a way that you simply could not even have anticipated previously.
I mean, 1000%. I mean, I also just think about the fact that like I got to spend time with my niece, right? Like she came into town for camp and I was able to look after, spend time with her. That was absolutely amazing. And then I've also now gone on like little 4-day weekends, hung out with friends in California, going to be hanging out with other friends in Florida, and the work's getting done.
Didn't you go to the Caribbean too?
Yes, I did. So I'm from the Caribbean. I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, and I also went home for like 5 days while all this stuff was in play.
And this is all happening in the past 4 months too. These are all, this is not spread out over a year. This is all very recent.
It is. I mean, it's actually kind of mind blowing how much I've accomplished, right? Because in my mind, the runway to getting to today was going to take much longer. And that then, was probably me being conservative, but truly me not really truly recognizing my own power. Because just going back to something that Danny said, she was like, if you've been a rock star in your industry, you will be a rock star on your own. And this is your opportunity to show the world who you are. And that's exactly what I've been able to do in the last 4 months.
I love that. That is so incredible. And you're just so solid. And I even think about our first call together because you did not feel nearly this solid.
Oh, no. I was wobbling all over the place, if you remember, because I was so unsure of how I was going to build this thing, how I was actually going to start selling this business offering, and then also how I was going to show up in the world just like as an expert. And all of that has changed in such a short period of time. I mean, I feel more empowered now than I did then. And it's one of those things where it's like not only feeling the fear and doing it anyway, but recognizing like if you don't take the risk, there's not going to be any magic.
I mean, the age old saying, like, no risk, no reward. This is just how it is.
1000.
And you were committed to yourself too. You were really, you took it seriously too. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's not just moving the money, it's showing up for yourself on the other side of the investment and really Like you treated this like this is plan A and there is no plan B.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing.
I mean, that is so spot on because, you know, when I took the leap of faith, a lot of people were like, you need a plan B.
Oh
And for like a
God.
minute, I considered it, but when I actually like, I for like 2 weeks, Jocelyn, like was looking for full-time gigs on the side just in case this didn't work out. And you know what? Doing that was such an energy suck. I was like, I have to literally go balls to the wall with this business. There isn't going to be another option. And if I didn't do that and make the investment, I knew I would be screwed. So I was like, I had to take the bet on myself, the risk and bet on myself and do it.
And then how did you feel? Because you're very similar to me. And where I was first building my business, I was like, I'm going all in. I'm paying for this group program. We're going to get there. I'm going to make the money. There is no plan B. This is what we're doing. And literally, like, F off to a life of plan B living. Are you kidding me? Like, does that sound sexy?
It does
No,
not in the least bit, not in the least bit.
the worst. And so, how did you feel? Because I was in a similar boat where it's like, okay, cool. You don't have income coming in. Great. You took a break, but I'm still going to go make this investment in myself anyway, instead of trying to be one of these people who's like trying to make money before you invest in yourself. You actually need to invest in yourself in order to make more money, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll tell you, like, you know, you get messages in so many different ways to remind you why you need to be doing what you're doing. So like when I was totally miserable, right? And in that energy drain of like trying to look for like the second job just in case, right? Or like continuing to slog away with like smaller things. You know, one of my really good friends called me and she goes, dude, do you not realize that the universe is telling you, you got to just double down on what that plan A is? And she's like, you just got to do it. And she's like, you will never get the reward unless you make the investment and you just got to do it. And she kind of also served as a cheerleader on the side, because you have to like keep the faith literally. And then, you know, the universe meets you on the other side. I'm a huge believer in that. I mean, it wasn't easy, but a lot of like your content helped. Like I listened to that Ganesha meditation so many times because that like truly helped me just like get out of my head and
Wait,
get
which
stuff.
meditation?
The Ganesha one
In the cohort?
in the cohort. Yeah.
Oh,
There's
I
the
didn't know
one
if you meant the one on the podcast or the cohort. In the cohort.
in
Yes.
the cohort.
Lots of tools.
Yes, lots of tools. Let me tell you, those were on repeat. My neighbors were probably like, what is she doing in that apartment?
You're like, I'm clearing all obstacles with Ganesh.
I totally was.
Oh
Totally
my
was.
God, that's so funny. I love it. And how did you feel walking yourself into the investment, just investing in the cohort, you know, during a time? Because you obviously you're so solid now, but that's because you invested in yourself and we did the work. But, you know, how did you walk yourself through that moment when you were not feeling nearly as solid, you know, and there's still a level of trust. Like, of course, obviously you see my track record, you've listened to my podcast, you see how my clients have done. There's energetic resonance. Obviously, Danny is so well respected. She's like, go work with her, you know, but there's still a level of like, you know, before you make the move.
And I had a moment of panic just with like putting the money out, but then I was like, you know what? It'll come back in some which way, shape, or form. You will recoup that money and more, right? And I also, you know, had to remind myself that there have been other times I've taken those leaps of faith where it's paid off. Like I like famously accepted a spot in grad school at the University of Southern California before I even knew how I was gonna pay for it, right? Because I wasn't living in the US and American education is expensive. And people were like, what are you doing? And I swear to you, within a week and a half of signing the acceptance letter, I got like a scholarship and bursaries to cover everything. So when I put the money out for you, I was like, you know what? It's going to come back. It's going to come back. And it has.
Truly has more than tenfold.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, Abenaa, I love this. Well, is there anything else that you have to share for anyone who is considering coming into my world, coming into the cohort? It's such an incredible, I mean, everything in my world is so incredible. So every time I talk about anything, I'm like, it's so incredible, but it just is so incredible. And it is something so special to see that this earlier part of the business journey does not need to be so arduous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why do we just make it arduous? It's like, it doesn't need to be.
I mean, I think we make it arduous because I think we've kind of been like wired that way. And I think the beauty of the cohort is to kind of unwind that and unlearn that. And like I said, I mean, you offer so much in the cohort between live and recorded content. I think for anyone who's looking for that support system and looking for guidance in terms of like structuring your business, the cohort is it for you, because you have all of the tools, including, by the way, all the legal stuff, which a lot of people probably don't even think about, but there's all of that stuff that you need to have on lock if you're truly going to drive a business. And that, I mean, having that structure and then knowing that you have both the energetic tools and also access to a group of women who are going to be cheering you on is so key. Because like, again, the thing that you said to me that also resonated was you don't have to go this alone, right? There's so many women who are on this journey with you in the cohort, and they'll be there to support you. And it was so great just seeing all of the cheers and the comments coming through in the Facebook group. All of that was really, really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, when we have that support, we fly. Like we are just wired for connection. And then obviously the guidance, you're not winging it. It's like, okay, cool. There's all the content. And then it's like, okay, we are moving forward. And obviously the coaching, if you join before the end of September, and it's like, we are moving forward with intention. It's not winging it. I'm not just like, oh, how do you feel about everything? I'm like, this is literally what we want to be doing here. You let me know what you're aligned with and what you're not, and then we'll figure it out from here. I just feel like I very much pride myself on being a coach who's like gives direction.
Yeah. And you sure do. Let me tell you, you're very like blunt and straightforward with it, but that's what you need.
Yeah. And then it's like, obviously there's openness. I'm not like a one way is the highway person. It's just like, let's go there. And then, okay, cool. How does this align with you? What pieces do? Okay. What doesn't? And then let's like, okay, great. Then let's rearrange that to align with you. Like my ego's not in it. It's literally just like, cool. This is how it feels. This is what I've seen. Da, 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 da. And then we just like work it to work for you,
1000%.
And also, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's all about working on what works for you, because it goes back to the alignment. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough either.
Totally. And what I love too is you were able to, like I said, just take so much from the calls that are already there. I mean, there's just so much content. It's like literally can support you for as long as you want to go.
I mean, 1000%. I mean, I went back like over the last few years because there was just so much there to learn from, especially, and you had such a diversity of women in terms of the types of businesses that they were building. And that was super helpful too.
Totally. And it's not like, to me, it's not overwhelming. Like we have structure to the content. I'm like, okay, this is stuff you need to focus on. But if you want to go back and listen to all these replays and hear the calls, they can be so helpful and they're just all there for you. And you're not the only. Leanne, who is on the podcast as well, she said that she would just turn on like the replays from the classes with me, etc., from like just ages ago and just listen to them in the background of her life. Like even when she was already moving and grooving in the business, just to like, these Q&A calls, like having access to them is huge.
I mean, it's so important because you not only get insights, but you also get to see how people are progressing their business. And I mean, Leanne, had like an amazing trajectory as well in the cohort. And that was great. Because I mean, at the end of the day, being able to see how people are succeeding is also good reinforcement when you're actually like in the trenches building your business.
Totally. You're like, okay, we're really going to get there. This is real.
For sure.
Oh my gosh, Abenaa, I'm so thankful for your time. What do you have, for anyone who's in this space? We never know. There could be a listener who has a contact who really very much like needs your support. What are the things, kind of like the different ways to work with you? What are the ways to get in touch with you? What would you like? I'm going to obviously leave your links and episode notes as well. Or if you have a community or the best ways to find you, all those good things.
So I would say if you're someone looking for guidance with your company strategy with DE&I, how you're going to position things, how you're going to manage all the things going on in the world, I'm your woman. I'm reachable either via my website, which is www.elizeconsulting.co. And then I'm also available on LinkedIn. If you just type in my name, Abenaa Hayes, I'll come up, and you can ping me there as well.
And then we also will have all links in show notes. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so enlivened by this. Is that even a word? I think so.
It is a word.
It is a word, right?
It is a word. It's a great one.
I never say that. I don't know why this popped out, but that's how I feel. Enlivened by the conversation with you. I'm so grateful you said yes. It's just been such a privilege. I'm so happy that like this is where we are just a few months later. Like this all just felt like it happened so quickly.
I know. It did. It's amazing how it did. And I
Oh,
have you to thank for it.
oh my goodness. And yourself because you showed up for yourself.
Thank
And you
you.
broke a huge generational chain from
I
your
did.
mom's experience, like a huge one, because that can really, I remember talking to you about that, and that is heavy when we're under that spell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was like the albatross around my neck, and I've totally broken through it for sure, which is so
Yay.
liberating.
So good. Freedom. My number one, like, this is what we're doing, honey. It's like financially, emotionally, everywhere. Freedom. This is it.
I'm here for all of it. All of
Yay.
it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been great.